I'll just call this meeting to order. It is 5:30, our first regular meeting of 2026. Welcome, everybody. We do have a relatively short agenda, but still important work. I'd like to begin with the City of Lacombe acknowledges that we live, work, and govern on shared territory of Treaty 6. We honor the histories, languages, cultures, and continuing contributions of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and other First Nations, as well as the Métis people of Métis Nation, Alberta District 4 and beyond. We affirm our ongoing relationship with this land and commit to respectful and meaningful engagement with Indigenous peoples as partners in our community. So our first order of business would be the consent agenda. Is anyone prepared to make that motion to either make any changes to the consent agenda or adopt as presented? Councillor Goings.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
No further comment on that. I would call the question. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. The consent agenda is adopted as presented. That moves us then to the regular agenda. Do we have any changes to the regular agenda? Any additions, deletions? Does not appear so. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Councillor Span.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
No further lights on. Please proceed to vote. And that too is unanimous. That moves us along in our agenda. We do have an open forum item today, just in case anybody's not familiar with that, what that is. That's an opportunity for a member of the public to come before council. They have 5 minutes. They do need to pre-register, but they can pre-register that day, and it can't be an item that's on this agenda, which it is not. So I would invite Mr. Olson to come to the presenter desk. You have 5 minutes, sir, to walk us through. You had submitted some materials in our package, so we have all seen that. So I would invite you to touch the button there so that your microphone is live, and please feel free to adjust that so that it's favorable for you to speak into. Once I'm finished talking, your 5 minutes will start. Do get to the point quickly because it will pass by quickly. If you have questions for us, we'll do our best to answer them. Otherwise, we may ask you questions or we may ask administration questions. So I give the floor to you, Mr. Olson.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Len Olson, and I have an issue with a recreational vehicle parked along the limit of our driveway to the point where it's creating a hazard. We can't see to the west of our property, which is 55 Ironwolf Boulevard, because the recreational vehicle is blocking the view to the sidewalk and the street. And our problem is that that location along our east boundary is the entrance to the park, as well as the mailboxes sit right at our east boundary. And there are a lot of families that come down the sidewalk and go to the park and also to the mailbox. And the families, a lot of them have small children. They tend to race out ahead of their parents quite often. And our problem is that when we back out of our driveway or even park so that I can pull out forward, we're blocked from seeing to the west. And we're blocked to the point where the truck, when I pull my vehicle out, my wheel, my cab has to be more or less right over the sidewalk in order to see to the west. And I've had one near miss with two boys racing down towards the mailbox with their skateboards. And I've had a number of situations where my wife has to kind of take a look because it's too dangerous to just back out or pull out forward. And I'm requesting council to order that the recreational vehicle be pulled out of there, removed from the site, and that the council would consider that when you look at your bylaw, there is no provision for storing recreational vehicles, holiday trailers, or vehicles on the front of the lots. And it's creating an enormous hazard for us. So I'm here to beg of council to present an order to remove the holiday trailer from the site and prohibit future vehicles, recreational vehicles, vans, anything from parking directly by my driveway. And it's a very practical thing, and it is a hazard. So I would say if there's any questions, that kind of sums up the issue. The bylaw, when you read it, you can see that there is no provision for putting pads and placing recreational vehicles or storing anything on the front yards in Macomb, and it's common throughout the entire province, really. This would not be allowed. So I don't know if there's any more that I can say. If anyone has any questions, I'd certainly like to answer them.
Sure. I actually have a quick question for you. When you say you looked at bylaw, do you remember which bylaws you looked at?
I looked at 506
Okay,
and I looked at 426.
okay,
The wording is somewhat similar, but the wording does prohibit the storing and parking of recreational vehicles in the front yards of the residences in Lacombe, especially along that. It's a fairly dense subdivision, Iron Wolf. And if we could imagine the chaos that would be created if everybody could jump the curb and park a vehicle and put a pad in. And I think it would be very dangerous. So I'm pleading with council to deal with it.
just for fair notice, 5 minutes have elapsed, but I do have a
Okay.
question for administration. So bylaw 506, section 511, trailers and recreational vehicles. It does talk under section F, and I'll read it out. No owner or occupant of a premise shall park a motor vehicle, recreational vehicle, or trailer on a front yard as defined by the land use bylaw on their property, except for where the properly constructed and surface driveway. So from the pictures, it does appear that this is a gravel pad, which in some places in the community could be considered a driveway. This does not appear to be a driveway. My guess is it's probably not a registered driveway on title. So therefore, that is the front lawn. So I guess I am like this resident wanting to understand how that's applicable or allowed under the, permissible under the bylaw. CEO Gowdy.
Thank you. Mayor Hill. So you and I discussed this and we did a bit of research afterwards. I would agree that under the bylaw, this is technically front lawn, and so I think your assessment is correct. What I would say is that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of instances of this type of thing. That doesn't make it all right, but that what I would say is it would be a significant change in our enforcement practice to go out and start addressing these, and a significant resource allocation to do so. So what we'd like to do is bring you back a report that would talk about, well, how widespread is this issue? And just make sure we are aligned before we go out and begin addressing these properties, because I think it will be a significant undertaking that could define the first year of your term in terms of what the community conversation is if we go out and address these aggressively. That's not, again, not to say that shouldn't be the case, but I do think you will be dealing with many properties that have this situation around the community. And it's not something that currently has generated a significant amount of complaint. So we'd like to bring back a report that would highlight the issue, not just here in Ironstone or Iron Wolf, I should say, but to look at, well, how widespread is it in other neighborhoods, and how does the bylaw treat front yard versus side yard versus driveway? This evening we've heard about the perception of the cause of significant safety hazards. But of course, if you look at the picture there itself, where there's been a driveway widening with concrete, that would be permissible to park a motorhome or a trailer there, and it would create the corollary sightline issue for the neighbor. So that the sightline issue can be created by driveway to driveway interactions or driveway to building. But you are correct that under the existing bylaw as written, these front RV parking pads, even when set to the side of the home, like not within the home's projection, do count as front yard, and therefore could be addressed under the existing bylaw.
Is administration going to need a motion to direct this, or are you already undertaking this in response to this presentation?
I would say we are already undertaking this, not necessarily directly in response to Mr. Olson's concern, although that is what brought it to our attention, but in response to the difference between our historical enforcement practices and the bylaw provisions. Which again, I do want to highlight some of these parking RV parking pads on the front will have been there for.
So sorry, not to interrupt you, but we can talk about this if it's coming back. My question is this coming back, or do you need a motion to have this come back?
It will come back.
It will come back. Mr. Olson, this doesn't address your specific situation, but if you can have patience with the city, this looks like it's something that we're going to look at. So you have my commitment on that. You have our commitment on that. So if you need to follow up with us on what that means, feel free to communicate with whom you were communicating with prior to get it on the agenda. And we can further explain kind of where we're at. But thank you very much for coming in and bringing this to our attention. And it looks like this could turn into something that we need to potentially pay attention to. So
Could I just say one more word?
briefly,
Just to set out that I think our situation, I can distinguish it. I have looked at a lot of different places in Macomb about this, but I think I can distinguish this because of the hazard. Mr. Gowdy, I think it is a real hazard for us. And I'm concerned that if it be left too long, it's going to become a bigger hazard.
Okay.
So,
fair. So I would say that when this comes back to council, we will make sure that you're aware of it and so that you're able to read the package and have feedback. Because again, we appreciate that you brought this to our attention and that this looks like something that we may seek to address. So thank you very much for coming and utilizing the public forum. I appreciate it.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, that doesn't then move us into the next section of our agenda, which is presentations. We have two presentations this evening, one from the Lacombe Athletic Park Association and one from BDO Canada. I have first the Lacombe Athletic Park Association. So Ms. Hayduke is coming. Feel free to bring along an entourage as well. You've been here before, you know how it works. If you just want to take the mic, turn it on, and then introduce your team once you've settled in. Your presentation was part of the package, so we have seen it, but certainly feel free to walk us through it and add anything that you may need to. And then there'll obviously be opportunity for questions as well. And I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Well, if you guys already gone over it, do I really need to? Yeah, thank you very much. I have Jay Adamson here. He's past president and sort of our Wolf Creek representative, and also does capital projects for LAPA. And on my other side is Alex Wise. He is vice chair and does special events and also property manager for LAPA. So, and I am the present chairman, so chairperson for the Lacombe Athletic Park. Thank you very much for letting us be here again, because we were here back in November, December, doing a presentation, but of course the board has changed, or the counselors have changed. So yeah, so I guess we'll go quickly through it. And we'll just go to the next slide, or do I? Oh, push the button, that's right. There we go, awesome, thank you. Okay, yeah, this is sort of a quick over that the Lacombe Athletic Park is a 6.5 million recreational asset for the community, 4.5 million for the initial field and field house, plus 2 million for the field house expansion. The 2 million expansion was done without public funds. The park has got it right in finding corporate and private sponsors. LAPA's mandate is to offer the park community at cost to encourage use and minimize the cost to Central Alberta teams. The City of Lacombe and County of Lacombe contribute less than half of the operating costs, for which we are very grateful for. The park is of great value to the community without being a large cost to the community, both capital or construction costs and operating costs. So yeah, so let me see here. And then you probably went through the park usage. We noticed that there is not as much usage when we first opened up in 2022 after COVID. There's a new field in Airdrie, and then of course they repaired or developed a new field. I think Shouldice was repaired down in Calgary, so now people aren't coming here. But prior to that, you know, people do use our field. And then I did give a survey about the students in Lacombe County, how many students, you know, are in that area that do use our field. So the City of Lacombe, they provide these in-kind services to us. Of course, we're quite grateful for. And then let me see. And then we did do a rate increase by 5% because it hadn't been done in the 8 years that LAPA was in existence. So yeah, and then we are in the process of probably doing a field replacement, and that's why I've asked Alex here for any questions about the turf replacement, because we are getting quotes and stuff to do that. And our early quote suggests it'll be about $1 million just to replace the turf on the field and the lines and such. So we're just in the process of that. And then this is our revenue stream for the last year, the current year, and then next year's. So this is why we asked for the 65,000 for the next 3 years. So we like it, if you get it in 3 years, then we know what we have. And yeah, it's just easier that way instead of doing it every year. So, yeah, so those are our numbers. And this is why we had to increase, because of utilities, maintenance, vandalism, and security. And like I said, our paid gate was down because we didn't have as many people attending, using the facility. So, yeah, so, and then of course, we're looking towards to see replacing or possibility of replacing our current employees. Fred has been in the hospital trying to get over something, and we're keeping an eye on him, but hopefully he'll be back. But eventually we will have to find replacement, which means that we would have to find, because we are getting them on the cheap. They do it just for the passion, right? To keep them busy, and they love doing it. And then the funds to keep the park going, and we're looking for funding for the track and field. And then of course and then we do put 70,000 away each year for the football field. So, okay. And then thank you. We got the okay, the letter of the 65,000 for the next 3 years. And this is going to help us immensely with the operational costs to run the facility. And then this is what the city of Lacombe previously has contributed to the park infrastructure. Just sort of what has been done. And then that was for the previous counselors. When you guys we offered this question out to when you guys had that question period down at LMC. And it's always in the back of our minds, right? So, and then, the track, it would be great to have it. We have, just at LCHS, we have a lot of people who go into track and field, whether it's for the scholarships to get into a university and stuff. We've done really well. And also our cross country does really well. And then we're always looking for partnerships. I have been in touch with the Honorable Mr. Heberden, and yeah, just to see whether we could do something big as a partnership with people, with the city, the county, bring something in if we did have a track. And then, of course, there are runners throughout Lacombe and county, and even Red Deer comes out to, do the competitions we do hold in the trails and such. I'm hoping that we're pretty close to doing another run this season in October, so we're excited to do that. And yeah, we just sort of the benefits of the track and field, and then what we've done tried to do for the expansion. Most recently, we did get what would you say, the CFEP. We didn't get the CFEP because, of course, we are trying to fundraise the 1.7 million that we do need to complete the 4.2 million track. So we're still looking for that sponsor, but yeah. And then, of course, we're continuing to fundraise. We do have our Super Bowl party at Boston Pizza, and then we're also doing the square. So if you want to buy a square, Alex, or I've got some here today. And then our online 50/50. So we are continually trying to fundraise for the park, right? So, and yeah, so that's basically it. So if we have any questions.
Do we have any questions for our presenters? Councillor Contenti.
Yes, thank you through Mayor Hibbs. You said 24 things, park usage started going down 25 because of Shoal Ice, which I've been to. It's quite a facility there too. And what are you looking at 26, 27 in regards to that? Is there any other, I'm sure you've surveyed, is there any other new parks coming in those two big cities? Or the 150-kilometer range, or do you see now leveling out 26, 27 from the initial downturn?
Well, now that we know that we have to replace our field in a couple of years now, it's kind of like that's, in our sites. I know in Calgary, they just completed a track, and that was like 31 million just to do their track and field facility there. Yeah, anything else going on? I'm not too sure. I know there's a track in Leduc. But anything else closer? Hopefully I'm answering your question.
But in relation to other facilities like we currently have, like so a football facility, there's nothing currently being built in these others. Not saying that they aren't in planning stages, like we aren't aware of that. I would say one thing, I mean, our facility, as Diane mentioned, is used by a lot from Edmonton and Calgary that would come meet in the middle. However, due to, I would say, the condition and then the cost sometimes for them to drive, it's being something that's being waived a little bit right now. So I would hope that with the field replacement and a better quality field, we'll be able to draw a little higher quality or better numbers again.
Yeah, just to add to that, like our facility it's a great facility, and our location is perfect for provincial teams. Like Jay was saying, how we have Edmonton, we're kind of smack dab between Edmonton and Calgary. So we do have Football Alberta comes and uses our field. We have Alberta Lacrosse comes and uses our field. When we redo the field, we currently don't have rugby lines on our field, but we are planning on putting rugby lines on. So with the idea that hopefully we will attract provincial rugby teams as well to the area. And every time we bring in provincial teams, that's outside people coming into our community, spending money at our grocery stores, at our restaurants, at our hotels. So that is something that we do view. One of the things when we did our field originally, and I don't know how technical you want to get on the field replacement, but a shock pad wasn't a standard of the day at the time. And so a lot of the new fields that are being built do have the shock pad built into it. So that is included in our turf replacement, that we will be putting in a shock pad along with the new turf. And so that's included in the roughly $1 million estimate.
CEO Gowdy, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. You mentioned, Ms. Hayduck, that you had a 3-year agreement for the $65,000, but I was of the understanding that $65,000 was not a one-time, but it was a 1-year approval, and that one of the things you would be seeking this evening was confirmation that that would be a 3-year commitment. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is. Yeah, because the letter that was sent was just because we did ask in our in the form that it would be for 3 years. And then I questioned that, is it when the letter did come? So, yeah.
CEO Gowdy, how's that reflected in our 10-year, like our 3-year financial plan, or 10-year capital plan, whatever it might fall under?
It would be included in the 3-year operating plan, but it's since it's not a capital item, it wouldn't show up in your 10-year capital plan.
But it was reflected in the 3-year operating, the 65.
Yes, we would have forecast the 65 and possibly an escalator of 2% or so per year, but that's not a firm commitment to the
100%. And I was just going to point that out, that of course a budget is passed only on an annual basis, and that anything beyond that is a hope and a dream, and not quite a promise, but we kind of hope so maybe. I don't think that that's a question that we're going to be able to answer tonight. Again, is this something that administration is looking to bring back as a discussion, or would that require a motion?
If you were to make a motion to extend it to a 3-year agreement, certainly that would be sufficient. Otherwise, we would bring that request during next year's operating budget to look at a 3-year funding commitment.
That's what I'm looking for. All right. Is there any further questions or comments on this item, on this presentation? Anything final from the presenters? No? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming, especially because it is to a new council. And it is a pretty marquee, actually, facility within our community. It does bring in a lot. I've seen it being used a lot. And the beautiful thing about that specific playing field is it is very multi-sport, right? You can do so many different things on it. Not even sports. I've seen other, non-sports being done on it as well, that are community events, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate that you have a ton of volunteers behind you. And so thank you to all of them as well, because that's how beautiful things happen in this community. So thank you to all of them as well. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So our next presentation is BDO Canada. I would invite Mr. Kennedy to take the presenters table. Feel free to bring up anybody else that you wish. Just feel free to introduce them if you're going to do that. You've been here before, so you know the drill. Definitely, we've had this as part of our package, so we have seen it. We've also seen this year to year, but this is new for some members of council. So I would invite you to take the floor.
So my name is Mitchell. I'm the senior manager on the engagement. This is Isabel. She's the senior on the engagement. So if you guys have any questions at all, this is going to be the audit plan that we kind of go through. And I brought some extra material that's not too lengthy, I hope, to basically discuss what the future looks like in the accounting world as far as changes are concerned. But generally speaking, it's just to kind of go over how the planning process works and kind of where we're at with things and some of the risks that we will go through and identify through the process and address. And yeah, just feel free to stop me as I go. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. So I should mention Lorraine Walker. She is the partner on the engagement. She's been doing public sector work for 30 plus years. She also specializes in First Nation work. She's a board member for BDO Canada. She's located based out of Calgary. So this is our current timeline of where we're at in the whole audit process. So right now, we're kind of doing both the interim field work as well as here presenting the letter for you guys as well. And so after we're done our interim work, which usually consists of testing the income statement, which is typically going to be your revenue and your expenses, we'll then come back at final and then we'll test the balance sheet items. And then we'll go refer back to any changes that happen in the income statement and do what we call top-up testing to make sure we cover over any population that wasn't there when we were doing the interim work. So then after we're done our final, we'll then come back to council and we will present our findings. And so it'll be kind of a similar letter to this, only it will be the conclusion of our audit and any changes that might have happened from the planning stage. And then once we get the final approval from council that they're okay with the financial statements, we'll then release the financial statements to the public. So just to kind of highlight our responsibility here as auditors, it's important that we we have to maintain our independence from the municipality. And something that would be considered breaching our independence with the municipalities if we had any kind of financial interest or we were providing you management insight or information saying this is what the municipality should be doing. These numbers are the cities. So we will sometimes propose what we call adjusting journal entries. Those have to be approved by management and eventually by council. So the reason I'm saying this is we just have to make sure that the public knows that we truly are independent. We do have a letter that goes into more detail. That's a part of this package if you guys want to read it more. I'm not personally going to go through it, just making the formal declaration that we are independent of the city. So this is always a weird topic. As auditors, it's like we're not specifically looking for fraud, but we address the idea and the risk of fraud that it could be present and it could exist in any single engagement that we do. And we do assess the risk level related to fraud and potential financial statement areas. I'll talk about those areas later. But as far as we're concerned as of today, just to let you guys know, we are not aware of any situations of fraud. If at any point anyone in this room is aware of any situation of fraud, even if it's just a mumble or a whisper, we stress that you please reach out to us and let us know what you've heard or have come across so we can address it and look into the situation. So these are the significant risks in our engagement. And so these are going to be common risks that a lot of municipalities have, especially municipalities of this size. And so the risks haven't changed from year to year. So the one main risk here is we have the management override of controls. So that risk exists when you have a small accounting team where you have certain users that have the ability to effectively override anything. And so it is a risk and we consider it a high risk. And the way we mitigate that risk is we do journal entry testing. So we will go through all manual adjusting journal entries that are posted by these specific individuals to make sure that those entries are true in nature and there is support to back up the entries that they're actually making. And then there's the revenue recognition one. So revenue recognition, there's it's a timing thing of when revenue is effectively getting recognized. So the big area is typically going to be grant revenue. So specifically related to capital things in nature. Without getting too into the handbook, the key word that they use in the handbook is stipulation. So if you receive a capital grant and there's no stipulation, meaning that if you don't spend the money, you don't have to theoretically pay it back. Sometimes municipalities will accidentally record it as deferred revenue, but because there is no stipulation, it should theoretically be immediately recognized as revenue. And so we'll basically go through all the grant agreements, make sure that there is a stipulation tied to it, and then we'll also match the spending with the expenses related to the capital grants as well to make sure it's appropriate. Then there is materiality. So our planning materiality. So our materiality will change potentially constantly throughout the engagement, depending on adjustments that get made. So as of today for planning, we're using a basis of about $1.8 million for materiality. And we're calculating that based off of interim numbers. So we're taking 5% of interim expenses. And so amortization hasn't been adjusted yet for interim, which is normal because capital assets usually get done at final. So you can't do amortization until you figure out what your final capital assets are going to be. So we use 2024 amortization expense to add it onto the interim 2025 numbers to kind of estimate what our materiality level is going to be. This $1.8 million could change at year end, depending on how the income statement effectively plays out. So we do have other numbers called performance materiality, which is going to be a percentage of that materiality. And so what that does is it allows us to look at specific areas within the financial statements with a finer comb to make sure that that area is sufficient from an assurance perspective and that the transactions are free from material misstatement. And then we have something called triviality. So triviality is calculated by taking 5% of your materiality. So if you have errors that are technically under 5% of that materiality, we will effectively say that these are not significant to the users and typically not adjust them unless we think there's like some kind of impact that either the ratepayers or the province or somebody might find interesting. But if it's just like a dollar threshold where we find that it's like, okay, an invoice came in, it was miscoded for $500. A user's typically not going to care about those $500 in transactions. But at the end of the year, once we're done the engagement, we will give you what we call a SLAM, or some accounting firms will call it a SUD, which is effectively a schedule of unadjusted entries. These will be all the entries that we didn't propose that didn't make it to the financial statements, but we think should be there, but they're not material in nature, so they won't have an impact to the financial statements. It'll be like a, just so you know, we saw these things in case you guys were not aware of these situations. And so those triviality items won't actually make it to that sheet, but they will make it to our audit file. So hopefully that's clear. This is kind of our audit cycle. The key thing here before I kind of go through this is to note that it's circular in nature. And the reason why it's circular is because you will often go through the audit process and find yourself working your way backwards depending on where you're at in the phase of the audit. So starting at the first phase, you have your scoping where it's basically us engaging at the first year, coming in to figure out, okay, is there anything different or what's going on this year? And any significant changes in the year will basically determine what the risk level is and what the impact could be to the financial statements. So that's us identifying and assessing the risk. And then based off of the risk that we identify, we'll design an audit process to effectively test those risks. And then we'll go out, obtain the audit evidence, and then we'll come back, do the testing, and then we'll form an opinion on the financial numbers that we have. And our opinion will come in the form of our audit report. So the audit report will be the first thing that we kind of go through in the audit. It's basically when we say these financial statements are clean or clear, or they're unqualified. So if you hear the term unqualified in financial statements, it's a good thing. If you hear the term qualified, it means you have something that means your financial statements aren't good. But at any point in this process, like we could be near the end and we could come across something where it might have a significant impact to the financial statements, and we would have to go all the way back to square one to make sure we're mitigating whatever just came up. There's more BDO stuff in here. It's our marketing stuff that I'm not necessarily going to go through. Yeah, that's it. I do have some quick material that I kind of want to go through for the changes in the financial world. For those that aren't aware, in the last like 3 years, 4 years, there's been significant changes in the accounting world. There was the adoption of asset retirement obligations. Last year, we had to deal with public-private partnerships, a change to revenue recognition for Section 3400. So there's nothing for the next 2 years, but when the 2027 year end comes around, there's going to be something that comes out called conceptual framework. And it's Section 1202. Basically, what that's going to do is it's going to change the face of your financial statements. And the reason for this change is they're trying to make it more consistent with other frameworks, because municipalities have a lot of people can't read them and understand them very well. So the idea is to help simplify it and make it cleaner for the average person to interpret the financial statements. And then also in 2027, they're going through the revenue recognition standard. So they're going through 3400, which is goods and services. They're going through government transfers, which is grants. They're going through financial instruments. They're going through allocated expenses for non-for-profits. So they're not changing the standards. They're trying to leave it less up to judgment and more specific. So there's some things in the accounting world that are up for interpretation, or they use the term professional judgment. They're trying to make sure it's more clear to the users and the accountants that this is what the standard truly means. So it's just clarity on those standards. And then in 2030, they're getting rid of Section 3250 and 3255, which is post-employment benefits. So that's like sick leave accruals. They're not getting rid of it. They're changing the standard and they're calling it Section 3251. They're just combining the two standards together. And then in 2031, they're creating new classifications for capital assets, and that's going to be around like art and antiques. So yeah, so you got a break for the next 2 years. So and that was my song and dance. So if you guys have any questions you want to run through, I'm here for anything that you guys might have.
Are there any questions? Does not appear to be so. Very good package. I think that was pretty self-explanatory. We're only at the beginning stages at this point in time. Obviously, the more heavy
Correct.
lifting will be when you come back
Yeah.
with an actual report. But I do appreciate you coming. Obviously satisfies, things we need to do. So appreciate that. And I guess you're excused unless you have anything else you need to add.
Oh,
No.
that's
Well,
it. Thanks,
have a-
guys. Have a good
Have a
meeting.
good evening. Thank you. So that then moves us along. We don't have any public hearings tonight, so that takes us right into requests for decision. We have 2 items under that category. 6.1 is bylaw 450.4 2026 utility rates for second and third reading. It does appear that we have Director Thompson that is doing the presentation for that, so I'll give you the floor.
Thank you and good evening, Council. Before you is recommendation from administration to give second and third reading to this amending bylaw. The two main amendments in this bylaw are updating the utility rates and clarifying a provision regarding wastewater blockages. The key message here is that the rates in this bylaw propose to maintain the typical single-family home utility bill in 2026, maintaining it with 2025 levels. And so our estimated rates or estimated bill for a typical single-family home in 2025 and 2026, based on these rates, is $178.48. We did notice between first reading and second reading a minor clerical error with respect to the non-scheduled cardboard collection rate. It was listed as 41.81. It should be 41.84. And so we are recommending, just to catch that error at this stage, that it be second reading be given as amended. That's all I have for my presentation tonight, Council. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Do we have any questions on this item? I do have one in regards to the sewer blockage. It sounds like before commencing any work to clear a sewer blockage, the owner shall require a plumber to document the blockage by recording. So it's pretty explicit that shall as opposed to can or whatever. Is there consequences if a homeowner decides or property owner decides not to do that? And as an example, on some of the streets that have the beautiful tree canopy but invasive roots, many homeowners or property owners will just do a regular clean out of those pipes, like on their end of things. And so it's, perhaps like trying to attempt not to have a blockage, or they might have a minor blockage, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm assuming the point of this bylaw is not to say that you can't do that without, taking pictures or whatever, but this is, I'm assuming if you're wanting to potentially pursue maybe like funds from the city or what's refunds or that sort of thing. So could you just elaborate on what the intention of that section is?
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. There are provisions in the utility bylaw that clearly outline when the responsibility for a blockage is with the homeowner and when the city may intervene or participate in addressing that situation. And what we've seen come up is that an owner is requesting the city to intervene or repair or undertake a repair under section 5.13.9, which says an owner may request the repair or replacement of a wastewater service line if the owner demonstrates that the wastewater service line is performing poorly or that it has repeatedly caused problems. And so by requiring residents to document the location, which is a key factor in our decision on whether it's a city issue or resident issue, it really helps us clarify and the resident clarify where responsibility for repair may lie.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Contenti.
Yes, thank you. Through Mayor Hibbs, just a question. You're defining plumber in there, same section there, 513.1. The owner shall require a plumber. So you're defining now that you're only going to allow a plumber. I am a plumber. That's a certified journeyman thing. There is lots of companies that do videoing that are not plumbers. So I'm just wondering if you are really sure you want to use that word plumber there and restrict, or did you just want it videoed?
So it's a good question. We do use plumber in several sections of the bylaw, kind of referring to the same idea. It has never been a barrier to somebody coming forward, to my knowledge, saying, I had somebody video it, whether it be a Mr. Roto or some other thing like that. This is the location, here's the video evidence. Here's what we are proposing to be included in the file. That's never been a barrier for us. We've never turned somebody away and asked for their certification. And so perhaps the definition of plumber could be expanded in the bylaw to include that sort of thing. But functionally, it's never been a reason we've turned somebody away.
Okay. And just to follow up, so my suggestion is that we do that, maybe bracketed or plumber or something, because you are really restricting there, and if we always go by the rule of a bylaw, if someone really said, well, my neighbor, he didn't get the plumber, and I got the plumber, and so it's one of those enforcement things, so if we're not going to enforce plumber, let's not use plumber. That's my experience.
Councillor Span.
Through Mayor Hibbs to Director Thompson, have we had a lot of issues with this not being clarified in the past?
I mean, a lot is subjective, but it comes up from time to time, a few times a year, where there is questions around responsibility, blockages, and we want to be clear with the public that if you do experience blockages on your sewer main, it's a really good idea to like document that and to build a file, because if there is a repeated, if there's a trend of issues occurring, then that might, the city may intervene in cases where maybe we wouldn't if we didn't have that kind of evidence built up. And so it's more about a clarity thing rather than after the fact we hear about kind of for the first time, well, this has been going on for 4 or 5 years or 6 years, and we have heard about this for the first time now.
I guess my concern with it is it feels like it's one of those things where it just puts more of the liability back on the homeowner and potential cost back on the homeowner as well. If there are additional costs from their plumber to take those pictures or run the videos, those types of things. If it's a shell, yeah, I guess that would be my only other comment on it.
Any other questions? I guess the only thing that I would just say before potentially entertaining a motion would be that this does obviously capture recent budget discussions where we were holding the line on a number of the utility rates, or I should say utility rates for a number of residents. So I think that was something that council delivered on and worth mentioning, highlighting for this item. Do I have a motion for second reading? Councillor Span.
I actually had one other question.
Sure.
When these types of issues come up, do we have an idea of what types of cost has come to the city for them? Are we talking thousands of dollars in expenses because now we're on the hook for some repairs and maintenance? Or are we talking hundreds of dollars?
CAO Gowdy.
It'd be hundreds of dollars and maybe a handful of times a year, at the most.
Thank you. Do I have someone prepared to make second reading motion? Councillor Coyne, Councillor Powell. Yeah, it's as amended, yeah. Oh. I think that I heard, sorry, the question is that we're asking if the clarification on plumber is going to be included as part of that amendment. And I heard that it would. Correct me if I'm wrong. Director Thompson.
I would say that these, we can take these in, like these are kind of, it's not a functional barrier to the usage of those provisions. So I would suggest that allow me to log that, and then the next time we go through an update cycle, that definition be clarified, since it's not a real, like an actual problem today, and that just kind of become incorporated into the cycle. So I would suggest that we don't include that in the amendment if council would be amenable to that. The amendment as intended in the report is just simply for the
Typo.
one typo. Right now, it does not include changes to the blockages section as proposed.
I guess that would be my question. Is that satisfactory? Counselor Span?
I would consider making a motion like that, but I would actually feel more comfortable if we eliminated that second amendment completely. If we're just talking about a handful of times and hundreds of dollars, where if a resident has a plumbing issue, where now they're required to get those pictures taken or they're required to get that video taken, it could cost them an extra, you know, $300, $400, $500 anytime that happens to them. Where in my opinion, if we just leave it as is and it happens to cost the city you know, a few $100s over the course of a year, I'm comfortable continuing on without that amendment.
I guess my question would be that, like, would it? Because if you are a homeowner and you have experience a sewage block, what this is saying is that you need to get camera evidence to show that it's the city's responsibility. But if you go ahead and address the blockage without that evidence, it would be potentially harder to come back to the city and go pay up. So I guess by not having this in there, it's not saying a resident has to do that. Now, this onus would still be on the resident, in my opinion, to get that video, because otherwise, how would they prove it? They'll still be required to do that, I would think. But maybe administration has a different take on that. CEO Gowdy.
Yeah, to the mayor and through to Councillor Span. That second amendment isn't providing the requirement for people to do that. It is clarifying that if you are looking for the city to cover that cost, there needs to be some video evidence as to the location of the blockage. So it's still, to the mayor's example, if you just every few years preemptively are flushing your line or aren't seeking compensation from the city, there's no requirement that you get a video done. It's only if you want to provide evidence to the city to say, well, actually, this blockage is in your section of the line. We aren't able to just take sort of like, well, my plumber told me it was 80 feet out. We would need some demonstrated evidence of that.
Through Mayor Hibbs to administration, I guess there too, my concern would be that if an issue arises, then it assumes that the blockage is on the resident's side, not on the city's side. And it assumes that they're guilty and they need to be the ones taking care of it, and it eliminates their ability to what's the best word for that? To take any concerns to the city at that point, because without that video, then they're assumed to be guilty. So I don't know. I guess I just think if we're talking hundreds of dollars, why bother going down this road and putting someone in potentially in a situation where they've just had to deal with something miserable, where now they feel like they've got no avenues to recoup anything.
CEO Gowdy.
So I would say the term guilty has a strong connotation. I don't think anybody is assigning guilt, but 9 times out of 10, the source of the blockage is on resident side. So there's a natural reason why the default is that overwhelmingly common scenario where it's on the resident side. So the reason we only get a half a dozen per year, but there's all these businesses that go around doing this full time, is because most of the time the blockage is on private property due to a private infrastructure issue. In those unusual circumstances where there's evidence that actually this is not the typical, it is on the city's portion, that's where someone is able, under today's bylaw and under the proposed bylaw, is able to provide that evidence and get a refund. So this just clarifies what that evidence is that's required to get the refund, so that it's clear to someone up front, oh, this is on the city side, I better get some documented evidence so I can go after them for the compensation. As it stands right now, that's not really clear what they would do to provide that evidence.
Councillor Contenti.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. It's to Councillor Smith. I have cleaned many of those lines, called building sewer from 3 feet outside the building to the property line. And when CEO Gowdy says majority of the time, because 70% of the line is on the property owner's side. And it's rare that the city side from property line to where it ties into the main is faulty. That's very rare. And so, yeah, it's going to be, most of the time, it's going to be property owner's responsibility. And over the years prior to having video evidence, I've done lots of them and trying to go to the city and say, well, you know, we did this and we think we're there and, you know, we're not sure. And then the city says, yeah. And then, so this is really good, actually. It's like, yeah, there is a cost, but now they have the evidence. You can go to the city and say, nope, this is on your side. We expect you to fix your end of the bargain. Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
Councillor Dyke-Slag.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 450.4 as amended.
Thank you. No further lights. Please proceed to the vote. That is unanimous. In order to entertain third reading, we do require a special motion, I believe, yes. But unfortunately, that was not included in your package. So I will make the unusual step of reading, making a motion. So I move that council resolves to consider the third reading of bylaw 450.4 as amended. And just a reminder that this does require a unanimous vote to pass, as it's unusual otherwise to do both of those readings together. Are there any comments on that motion? None? All right, well, I would call the question. Please proceed to vote. And that is unanimous. That does allow for a motion for third reading to be made, if someone's willing to make that. Councillor De Bresser.
Yep, I move that council give third reading to bylaw 450.4.
No lights. I'll call the question. Please proceed to vote. And that is also unanimous. Thank you. That does then take us to the next item on our agenda, which didn't load properly. Employee Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy. And who will be presenting this one? CAO Gowdy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Hibbs. Before council this evening is an updated version of the city's Employee Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy. Recently, there was a repeal of the Council Code of Conduct bylaw requirements that were previously under the Municipal Government Act. And we noticed also that our Employee Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy was at this point, well, at that point it was 7 years old. Now it's 8 years old. So we did a review and have made a number of changes and updates to align with current expectations, including better definition of pecuniary interest and conflict of interest for staff, specifically those involving members of a staff member's family that's bidding on a contract, to be very explicit that in those cases, an employee can have no involvement in the procurement or award of such a contract or oversight of such a contract. We have included the city's values in the policy to highlight how they're applicable to staff under this policy. We've included whistleblower provisions which is something that's become more of a common practice in the last, since 2018. And we have explicitly given the CAO authority to report certain types of unethical behavior to a credentialing body, should there be the need to do so. The previous policy was silent on that point. And so we wanted to make sure that that authority was there within the policy. So we think that the update improves the transparency and auditability. It certainly provides better protection for people that want to raise issues of ethical misbehavior or perceptions of ethical misbehavior. It clarifies when and how family members of employees would be permitted or not permitted to apply for city contracts. And it gives that authority to report unethical behavior in the unfortunate situation that it should arise with a professional employee.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this item? There are two recommended motions. One would put this policy into place and one would rescind an older version. Councillor De Bresser.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hipster to CAO Gowdy. Can you explain why this is a council policy and not an admin policy?
In this case, there is an administrative directive that follows this policy. So there is the CAO speaking to staff. But given the council does have an employee that has expectations from an ethical conduct practice, we chose to make it a council policy, which would flow through actually through that administrative directive directly to other staff as well. So these expectations that you have here will be the same expectations of myself and other staff. And we may add additional clarity to that through that administrative directive.
Councillor Dykes-Laig.
Do you currently have an administrative directive on social media? And I know it is in one of your media policies that refers to this code of conduct, but do you have a directive on social media so that employees are very clear? Does, in my world, that is a growth industry and a concerning issue for HR. So I don't know if you need a reference or do you have a directive for social media within your directives? Thank you.
I like that term, growth industry. Yeah, we do have one. It's dated. And so that will be something that we follow up on after getting this head piece of governance in place, is then cascading down to that next level.
Any other questions or someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Contenti.
Just a question through my herbs to CAO Gowdy. I might be a little confused, so can we look at 6.4.3 conflict of interest? That's the old policy. This is conflict of interest as if a counselor believes they have. So is this the old policy? Or should that say employee, or am I just confused on that one?
I believe this language is directly from the Municipal Government Act, but I am surprised because this is to, sorry about the council inclusion. It is to be directed towards employees. So I'll have to. Sorry, just give me one moment. This is to be applying to employees, and so I think that that is in error, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. So how would we address that?
A removal of that section would be my assumption, so it would be an amendment.
Yes, either. We would just, because this is a fairly discrete component, if you were comfortable with it, we would pass an amended policy that removes 6.4.3. But just as easily, we could bring back the policy with that section removed and pass it at that time. There's no immediate urgency. So either option. I apologize for the error there.
Councillor Contenti, if you wish to just proceed with the motion, but as amended, striking 6.4.3. Is that the correct section? Yes.
Or the other option is just bring it back again, or?
Yes, that's the other option.
Yes, the other option would be to postpone it until a updated draft could be brought for your review.
Okay, that would be my motion, to postpone it until an updated draft comes.
Okay. Does administration need a motion to capture that, or just not do any readings of this policy?
Well, we are clear on what would happen. I think that the clearest for the minutes would be to officially postpone it. Thus, anyone reviewing those minutes would know what was decided on this item.
Perfect. I think Councillor Contenti would wish to make that motion to
Yes.
postpone this item to a later meeting.
Yes, I do make that motion that we postpone this item until a further meeting when administration come back with an updated policy.
And because we love motions on the fly, that is going to be different than what we have prepared. So what's going to be on your screens is not going to match that, but I'm assuming we can give it a moment and we'll have an updated option. Okay, just let me know when we do have an updated motion. Coordinator Post.
If I may read that motion back. That council postpone item 6.2 to allow administration to remove section 6.4.3 from the policy and return amended policy to council at next regular meeting.
That captures what you were meant to say, Councillor Contenti?
I'm not sure we need to remove that section or just clarify the wording there, like remove council and put employee in there. Is that saying the same thing?
Or if we just had it to say update that section rather than remove it.
Yeah.
That council postpone item 6.2 to allow administration to update section 6.4.3 and return amended policy to council at next regular meeting.
Councillor Contenti, yes, that would be your motion?
Yes, that would be my
Okay.
motion.
And are we prepared to vote? Perfect. I will call the question then. Please proceed to vote. And that is green. That is a unanimous screen. All right, so we won't carry on with that item that has been postponed. That does move us then through in our agenda to the next item, which is notice of motion. I do have a notice of motion that was submitted by Councillor DeBresser, and it was published in the agenda. It does read that council direct administration to bring the council remuneration and expenses policy for council's review and potential amendment to the next regular meeting of council. Is that the correct motion, Councillor DeBresser?
That is correct.
Okay, So that motion will come forward at the next regular meeting for debate. That does bring us then to the end of the public portion of our meeting. Just before we go into camera, I will just note that our next regular meeting is January 26th, then February 9th and February 23rd. So just make sure those are in your calendars. Otherwise, we are going to move in camera. So I'll need a motion to do that, please. Councillor Goings.
I move that we move into camera.
I don't see any lights on, so I'll call the question. Please go ahead and vote. So we are in camera as of 6:45. Thank you very much.